The plane glided through the night sky with calm precision. The soft hum of the engines filled the first-class cabin like a quiet lullaby. Faint golden light from the sunset filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the seats. Seated in 3C, a sharply dressed man in a dark suit scrolled through his tablet, lost in thought, until something unusual caught his attention. Footsteps, hesitant, then a soft, muffled sob. He looked up and saw her. She walked slowly down the aisle, wearing a flight attendant's uniform, but her eyes were red, glassy. In her arms was a small puppy, wrapped tightly in a gray blanket. The pup shivered quietly, and so did she. When she reached his row, she paused, as if debating whether to speak. The man removed his earbuds, sensing that this wasn't just another in-flight moment. Her face was composed, but her expression held something deeper, pain she couldn't quite hide. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely holding together. I shouldn't be falling apart like this, but it's all just too much right now." He sat up straighter, gently folding his hands in his lap. There was something about her, the way she held the puppy, the tension behind her words, that pulled at him. This wasn't just a rough day, it was something else. Something heavier? "Is the puppy okay?" he asked, quietly, not wanting to push, but needing to know. She glanced down at the tiny face nestled in the blanket, then looked back at him. Her eyes searched his, as if trying to decide whether to keep going. Then she sat down in the empty seat beside him. Her grip on the puppy tightened slightly, as if drawing strength from the small life in her arms. When she spoke again, her voice was still trembling, but there was a clarity to it. "His name is Rusty. He belonged to my brother. But my brother died 2 days ago." She exhaled shakily, as if saying it made it more real. "And what happened to him? No one knows. Not even the police. But Rusty saw everything. He's the only thing I have left of him." The space between them grew quiet, not uncomfortable, but thick with the weight of what she just shared. The man looked at her differently now. Less as a stranger, more as someone pulled into something larger than either of them expected. He couldn't explain why, but deep down, he knew. This wasn't just a grieving sister with a puppy. This was the beginning of something far more complicated. The man didn't say anything at first. He sat still, absorbing her words like a sponge dropped into water. The name Rusty echoed in his mind. So ordinary for a puppy, yet now wrapped in something far deeper. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was respectful. It was the kind of silence that allows grief to breathe. He finally leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and glanced at her with calm intensity. "How did it happen?" he asked, gently, his voice low enough not to carry beyond their row. She looked out the window for a moment, gathering the courage. The sky outside was painted in hues of fading lavender and deep blue. Then she turned back to him, her lips parted slightly before the words found their way. "My brother Thomas," she began, "was the kind of person everyone trusted. He worked as a veterinarian in a small town in Colorado. Kind, quiet, never caused trouble." Her voice cracked. "But last week, he called me, panicked. He said something wasn't right, that he thought someone was following him. At first, I thought he was just stressed, but then he went silent." The man frowned, his brow tightening. This was no ordinary loss. There was something off, something unsaid lingering in her voice. And then, 2 days later, a neighbor found Rusty wandering outside Thomas's clinic. The lights were on. The front door was wide open, but Thomas was gone. Her voice shook, and she clutched the puppy closer. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, nothing, just absence. A chill crept up his spine. The story didn't make sense. People don't just vanish, especially someone like Thomas. Did the police investigate? She nodded bitterly. They ruled it as voluntary disappearance. Said maybe he had a breakdown and ran off. But Thomas wasn't like that. He would never abandon Rusty. That dog was his shadow. The man looked down at the puppy, now asleep in her arms. For a second, The cabin noise faded, replaced by an unease settling in his gut. This wasn't just a grieving woman sharing her pain. This was a mystery, and something told him she wasn't done telling it. She had chosen to sit beside him for a reason, and he was beginning to understand why. But what he didn't know was how much of that story would pull him in next. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Laura stared at the sleeping puppy in her arms, as if the answers were somehow hidden in the slow rise and fall of his chest. The man beside her, still nameless to her, kept his eyes fixed forward, mind racing with questions. Everything about this felt personal, too detailed to be coincidence. And yet, what struck him most was the way she told it. Like someone who didn't just need to be heard, but needed to be believed. She finally broke the silence. Rusty was there when it happened. I know it sounds crazy, but I think he remembers something. Her voice lowered, almost like a confession. When I brought him home, he wouldn't sleep. He'd bark in the middle of the night, always at the same spot near the back door. Then last night, he did something different. He turned to her, giving her his full attention now. There was a tremor in her voice that hadn't been there before, part fear, part hope. He dragged one of Thomas's old hoodies out of the laundry basket and sat by it. Then he started growling low and steady. I've never seen him act like that. And I found something in the pocket of that hoodie. She reached into her bag and carefully pulled out a crumpled photo, holding it out. This. The man took it carefully. The picture was old and slightly torn. 3 people standing in front of what looked like a clinic. One of them was clearly Thomas. The other 2 were strangers to him, both smiling too hard, their arms around Thomas like old friends. On the back, scribbled in pen, was a single date, July 14th, 2002. Do you know who they are? He asked. She shook her head. No, Thomas never mentioned them. And that date, I looked it up. It was the same weekend he came back from a trip to Texas years ago. Said he was thinking about starting his own practice. But he never talked about who he met there. Never shared details. Now I wonder if that trip changed everything. The man exhaled slowly, the weight of her story settling deeper. He looked again at the sleeping puppy. Peaceful now, but clearly carrying pieces of something much heavier. Laura's voice was steadier now, but her eyes said it all. She was terrified, not just of losing her brother, but of what she might find if she kept digging. And for reasons he couldn't explain, he found himself saying the one thing he hadn't said to anyone in a long time. Maybe I can help you. Laura turned her head slowly, her eyes narrowing slightly. Help me? She asked, uncertain. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. The man hesitated for a second. Then, with a deep breath, he offered his hand. My name's Daniel Reeves. I'm not just a passenger. I used to be a federal investigator. Retired now, but I still recognize when something doesn't add up. And what you're describing, it's not just a missing person case. There are signs of a cover-up. And I've seen that before. Her posture stiffened, as if unsure whether to trust him. But something about his eyes told her he meant it. There was a calm in him. Not the kind that ignored danger, but the kind that had faced it head-on more times than he cared to admit. Laura slowly extended her hand, and for the first time since she boarded that flight, she felt a glimmer of something unfamiliar, relief. I've been trying to get someone to listen, she said, shaking her head. But the police won't do anything. They said Thomas probably left on his own, that I'm in denial. But he wouldn't leave Rusty. Not ever. Daniel nodded. People disappear all the time. But good men? Ones with no history of running? That's different. And that photo you found? That's a lead. Especially if those faces are connected to something bigger. He paused, thinking. Do you still have access to Thomas's things? His home? His office? Yes, she answered. I haven't touched much. Feels wrong. Like I'm intruding. But now, maybe there's something I missed. He leaned back in his seat, glancing once more at the photo. We need to find out who those people are. July 14th, 2002. It's too specific to be random. People don't vanish for no reason, Laura. And someone didn't want your brother talking about something. Laura looked down at Rusty, still asleep in her arms. The puppy twitched slightly, as if dreaming. Her heart ached, but now there was a thread of something new, purpose. She didn't know this man, not really, but instinct told her to hold on to him. The flight continued into the dark sky, silent once again. But now the silence was different. It wasn't heavy with grief. It was sharp with focus. And as the clouds moved past them like ghosts in the night, neither of them noticed that, just a few rows back, someone else was watching and listening. 3 rows behind them, tucked quietly by the window seat in 6A, a man sat motionless. He wore a plain gray hoodie pulled low over his forehead and pretended to sleep, head tilted toward the window, one arm resting lazily across his tray table. But under the shadow of the hood, his eyes were open, sharp, cold, and fixed on the pair in 3C. He hadn't heard everything, but he'd caught enough. The name Thomas, the photo, July 14th. That was all he needed. Back in 3C, Laura shifted in her seat, unaware of the gaze burning into her back. She gently stroked Rusty's ear, her fingers moving in rhythm with her racing thoughts. She'd never imagined someone like Daniel would appear, offering help without hesitation. Part of her still questioned it. How could she trust a stranger? But something about his steady presence anchored her. And deep down, she knew. She couldn't do this alone anymore. Daniel sat upright now, as if something had clicked into place. If someone's watching you, he said, barely above a whisper, they may already know you found the photo. And if that's true, this trip might not be as unnoticed as you thought. Laura turned to him, her eyes wide. You think they followed me? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he scanned the cabin slowly, trained eyes catching every subtle movement. Flight attendants preparing drinks, a couple watching a movie, a teenager scrolling through his phone, and then a man in 6A, hood up, still, too still. Daniel's instincts flared like a warning siren in his chest. Don't turn around, Daniel murmured. There's someone 3 rows behind us who hasn't moved in over 20 minutes. He's not reading, not watching anything, just listening. Laura froze. Her grip on Rusty tightened instinctively. What do we do? Nothing yet, Daniel replied calmly. We land in less than 2 hours. For now, we keep talking. Just like we were. Make it seem casual. But when we get off that plane, you stay with me. Understand? She nodded silently. Her breath had gone shallow, and she could feel her pulse thudding in her ears. Everything inside her screamed that they were being hunted. Not by accident, but because someone knew exactly what she was trying to uncover. And 3 rows back, the man in the hoodie smiled faintly, closing his eyes like someone who had all the time in the world. He hadn't been sent to stop her. Not yet. The cabin lights dimmed slightly as the captain's voice came through the speakers, calm and routine. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin our initial descent shortly. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts. For most passengers, it was a cue to pack up headphones and toss out coffee cups. But for Laura and Daniel, it marked the beginning of something far more serious. Laura tried to keep her breathing steady, but her eyes flicked anxiously toward the aisle every few seconds. Rusty stirred lightly in her arms, sensing the shift in her energy. She whispered softly into his fur, more to calm herself than him. Daniel remained composed, but his mind was spinning, assessing options, exits, possibilities. Whoever was behind them, he was deliberate. That man hadn't moved, hadn't made a single mistake. Which meant he was trained. We'll get off fast, Daniel said under his breath, not looking at her. You walk 2 steps ahead of me. Don't look back. Once we're in the terminal, we'll blend with the crowd, then break off toward the rideshare zone. I'll check for a tail. If he follows, I'll know. Laura gave a slight nod. Her heart pounded so loudly it almost drowned out the sound of the descending landing gear. The entire plane felt smaller now, like a trap. She hadn't planned for any of this. She was supposed to quietly take Rusty back to her brother's house, grieve, sort through his things. She wasn't supposed to be followed, watched, hunted. 3 rows back. the man in the hoodie finally moved. He sat up slowly, stretched his neck side to side, then reached under the seat in front of him to retrieve a small, worn backpack. His movements were casual, nothing that would raise alarms to anyone else. But Daniel saw it all in the reflection of a window. That bag wasn't just a carry-on. It was positioned like a professional's. Ready, accessible. The wheels touched down with a soft bump, and the plane rumbled to a slow roll. Overhead bins clicked open as passengers stood too early, eager to leave. But Laura and Daniel remained seated, composed, waiting for the right moment as the door finally opened and passengers began filing out. Laura stood, holding Rusty close to her chest. Her legs felt like they were moving underwater. Behind her, Daniel followed, calm and unreadable. And 3 rows back, the man in the hoodie waited, counting to 10. The airport terminal was a blur of motion and noise. Rolling suitcases, overhead announcements, and the steady shuffle of tired passengers. Laura clutched Rusty tightly against her chest as she walked, eyes fixed ahead, fighting every instinct to look behind. Her nerves screamed, but she followed Daniel's instructions to the letter. Walk forward, 2 steps ahead, don't break pace, don't turn around. Daniel, walking just behind her, scanned every reflection he could catch. Polished floors, security glass, store windows. Years of fieldwork had sharpened his instincts, and they were screaming now. Someone was following them. Maybe one man, maybe more. But the rhythm of their movement, the casual distance maintained, it wasn't the behavior of a random traveler. This was calculated. They turned toward the exit for ground transportation. Daniel caught a glimpse of the hoodie in a passing reflection. Still there, same posture, eyes locked. He was pretending not to follow, but Daniel had seen that look before. The patience of someone waiting for the right place to make a move. Not in a public terminal. No, outside, where cameras were fewer and help would be farther away. Left here, Daniel muttered. Laura followed the direction instantly, veering into a side corridor that led toward the rental car counters. It was more isolated, quieter. Less foot traffic and less visibility. Not ideal. But Daniel had a reason. He stopped briefly near a large digital ad board, pretending to check his phone. From the corner of his eye, he spotted the man in the hoodie pass behind them, but not straight. He slowed, shifted position, paused near a vending machine, watching, waiting. No doubt now, he was tracking them. We need to throw him off, Daniel whispered, stepping closer to Laura. I'll head out first through the far door. You exit through the opposite side. 3 minutes after me. Get in a cab, don't talk to anyone. Go to the address I texted you, your brother's house. I'll meet you there. Laura hesitated, gripping the strap of her bag until her knuckles whitened. What if he follows me instead? Daniel looked at her, calm but firm. He won't. He's watching me. I'll give him something to chase. She didn't want to agree. Everything in her screamed that splitting up was wrong. But the way Daniel said it, the quiet certainty made her trust him. For now, and as she walked toward the opposite door, holding Rusty close, she didn't notice that a second figure, one she hadn't seen on the plane, peeled away from a nearby kiosk and began to follow her. The taxi smelled faintly of air freshener and worn leather. Laura sat in the back seat, holding Rusty tight against her chest, trying to act normal. The driver, a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes, asked her something about the destination, but she barely heard him. Her heart was pounding too loudly. She nodded and gave the address Daniel had sent. Her voice cracked when she spoke. As the cab pulled away from the curb, Laura allowed herself a glance out the rear window. People moved about like any ordinary evening. Travelers loading luggage into cars, families hugging, others rushing to catch rides. But then, across the lot, a man stepped into view. Not Daniel, not the hoodie from the plane, someone else. Younger, clean-cut, holding nothing but a phone in one hand, and staring directly at her cab. Laura turned forward quickly, blood draining from her face. "Drive a little faster, please," she said, trying to sound casual. The driver obliged, but glanced at her through the rearview mirror, clearly sensing her unease. She looked down at Rusty, who was alert now, ears perked up. He let out a soft, uncertain whine, as if sensing something too. Every block they passed felt like an hour. Laura checked the side mirror again. A black sedan had changed lanes at the same time as their cab. It didn't have any markings, no obvious signs of being suspicious. But when they turned at the next light, so did the sedan. Her grip on Rusty tightened. She reached for her phone and texted Daniel. Someone might be following. New guy, not hoodie, in a black car. No response. She waited. Still nothing. She felt the panic begin to climb her throat. Suddenly, the sedan pulled into the opposite lane and sped up, passing them. For a split second, Laura exhaled. Maybe it wasn't anything. Maybe she was being paranoid. But just as she relaxed into the seat, Rusty barked, loud and sharp, and Laura instinctively turned toward the window. There he was, same man, standing at a bus stop, too far from where the sedan had passed. Too soon for him to have gotten there by foot. He hadn't followed her. He had been waiting for her. Laura's breath caught in her chest. The pieces didn't make sense yet, but the threat was real, and it wasn't just one person. Something much bigger was in motion. And Daniel still wasn't answering. Laura arrived at her brother's old house just after 7 p.m. The sun had dipped behind the mountains, leaving long shadows stretched across the quiet neighborhood. Everything about the place felt untouched. Porch light still on, the old wooden fence creaking in the wind, and a silence that carried weight. She stepped out of the cab with Rusty in her arms, scanning the empty street before making her way up the 3 front steps. No sign of Daniel. Inside, the house smelled like old wood and faded memories. A hint of stale coffee lingered in the air, the kind that seeps into walls after years of repetition. She locked the door behind her, pulled the blinds shut, and switched on a small lamp in the living room. Rusty jumped from her arms and trotted toward Thomas's bedroom. He always went there, but this time he stopped in the hallway and began to growl. Laura's skin prickled. Still no response from Daniel. She stared at her phone for a moment, thumb hovering over the screen. Then she made up her mind. If she was alone, she needed to find answers herself. Grabbing a flashlight, she followed the low growl into the bedroom. Rusty stood frozen in front of the old wardrobe in the corner, the one where Thomas kept not just files, but the things he said were for later. She hesitated before approaching. The cabinet was locked, but she knew the trick. Behind a childhood photo of the two of them, one they'd kept on the nightstand since forever, was a tiny spare key. She retrieved it with trembling fingers, unlocked the door, and opened it slowly. Inside were old boxes, binders, a few items wrapped in cloth. But what caught her eye was a large brown envelope at the back. Her name written across it in shaky, block letters. Laura. Her stomach dropped. She sat on the bed, opened the envelope, and pulled out a stack of handwritten pages and a small voice recorder. The first line of the letter read, "If you're reading this, it means I've disappeared. And most likely, they silenced me." Hands shaking, she pressed play on the recorder. Her brother's voice filled the room. Tense, hurried. "In 2002, I saw something I wasn't supposed to. 2 men, a clinic in Austin, illegal testing on stray dogs. I tried to report it. They found me, told me if I ever spoke, someone in my family would pay. I stayed quiet, but now they're back. And Rusty, he saw one of them. Laura, if something happens to me, go to the name on the last page. He can help you. And be careful with Daniel." She froze. He was there in 2002 too. Laura sat in the stillness of the bedroom, the recorder still in her hand, Thomas's voice echoing in her mind. The room felt colder now, heavier. Everything she thought she knew about Daniel had cracked in a matter of seconds. He hadn't just helped her. He'd been part of the past Thomas tried to escape. The question now wasn't just who Daniel was. It was why he came back into her life at this exact moment. A knock at the front door snapped her back to the present. 3 slow, firm taps. She stood up, heart racing, and crept toward the living room. Through the peephole, she saw Daniel standing on the porch, alone. No weapon, no threat, just him calm, composed, the same way he'd looked on the plane. She hesitated, then opened the door only a crack. "You knew my brother," she said, her voice shaking. "Back in 2002. He nodded, slowly. "I did. I didn't lie about being an investigator. But I wasn't there to protect him. I was there to cover it up. I was young, under pressure. I didn't ask questions. But what I saw stayed with me. And when I heard Thomas had vanished, I knew they were cleaning up loose ends." He paused. "I couldn't live with it anymore." Laura didn't answer. She opened the door wider, still unsure if she was making a mistake. Daniel stepped in cautiously, as if aware of the weight his confession carried. "I didn't know he kept records," he said, "or that he left something for you. I only wanted to help, Laura. Maybe to make up for what I didn't do back then." They moved to the bedroom, where she handed him the letter. Daniel read it in silence, his expression tightening with each line. Then he looked down at Rusty, who sat staring up at him, tail stiff, body alert. For a long moment the room was still, and then Rusty barked. Once, loud, sharp, not fear, recognition. Daniel flinched. "He remembers you," Laura said softly. "Not just from the plane. From before." Daniel's eyes met hers. Not defensive, not angry, just tired. "I told you I wasn't proud of who I used to be. And now?" she asked. "Now I help you finish what Thomas started," he replied. "The man on that last page. He's not the only one who needs to answer for this." Laura nodded. For the first time in days, she felt something she hadn't felt since Thomas vanished. Control. The truth wasn't buried anymore. It was right in front of her. And Rusty, the last witness, was ready to lead the way.